Hello, lighting people. Acuity Brands and one of its large lighting agents has started off 2021 making some bold moves that are reshaping the landscape of the Northeast US lighting market. First, in February, Illuminations Inc., Acuity's longtime Philadelphia metro area agency, announced that it was expanding into the New York City market by acquiring New York Digital, which was the Acuity-owned factory direct agency sales force that represented Acuity along with a number of other independent lighting manufacturers. Second, the next move came in March when the two companies announced that Illuminations would fill that northern New Jersey hole and represent Acuity Brands in that territory too. North Jersey is generally considered to be part of the New York metro area, but as a standalone market without New York City, it is still a top 15 US market. The third big move came when Acuity Brands had its senior sales executive for the $3.5 billion company leave the company and join Illuminations Inc. So with all those big moves, we couldn't decide which part of the story was more compelling for our audience to hear, the Illuminations perspectives or the Acuity perspectives. So we decided to have both companies join us today for this 5 big questions discussion. So first, we're pleased to welcome the founder and CEO of Illuminations Inc., George Lyngarkos. George, hello and thank you for joining us today for 5 big questions.
Hi, Al. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. I look
Great,
forward
George.
to
Good
some
to have
good
you
answers.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. And Sero Cardamone, the current Senior Vice President of Global Sales for Acuity Brands, and as of May 2021, the President and General Manager of Illuminations Inc. is also joining us. So Sero, hello and thank you for joining us today for 5 big questions.
Hello, Al. It's good seeing you again, my friend.
Great, thank you so much. George, let's start with you. All these moves, all these investments in territory expansion, why did Illuminations Inc. do it?
Well, I mean, you've been around this industry for a while, and if you haven't noticed, many of my competitors have moved into North Jersey or even New York. One of them in Philly bought somebody in New York City. So I've been looking at it, wondering what I was going to do, thinking about it. And when Acuity gave me this opportunity, it sort of answered my question. It was either do this or retire, and this sounded like a lot more fun.
Well, George, you have a reputation for not only being a strong principal, but also being a strong salesman who's close to the customers. So when you say those words, it sounds like you're walking the walk with respect to your reputation. So it's a big move that the industry has been talking about. And Sero, when you consider your career, you were the main guy who started up that factory direct agency in New York many, many years ago before you ascended to be the Senior VP of Global Sales at Acuity. So this is a bit of a homecoming for you, along with it returning you back home to the Philadelphia metro area. So when you think about the Acuity Brands model of having a factory direct sales force in New York City that now is part of an agency, that leaves just one factory direct agency sales force in the Acuity Brands business model, and that's up in Toronto, another top 5 North American market. So when you consider the GTA and possibly other markets, does Acuity Brands really want to be in the agency business?
Well, before I answer that question directly, if you go back historically, both of those markets have a history of factory teams well into the early 2000s. If you look at that landscape, the reason why we made the decision in New York in the first place was that we knew at that time that there was a lot of investments to be made. So just the simple fact of renting out 19,000 square feet, fitting that out, making that into not only and I happen still to think that it's best in class showroom space, but also taking that spacing and lending it out to the industry in New York and driving that value and using that space in terms of looking at new product, but also demonstrating new product based on application. So we didn't see at that time that how an individual independent agency could make that kind of commitment. And that's how, quite frankly, Al, that started in New York. And so I guess to answer your question more directly, I think just, I was taught growing up that actions speak louder than words. And the simple action of Acuity, obviously selling that agency to I2 for a grander strategy play, sort of sends the message that, they are bought off on the independent sales model around the country, not just in New York.
Makes sense. And when you consider these two moves, Sero, and you look at the North Jersey move and the New York move, they're a little different. In fact, it could be a lot different. When the North Jersey move, it feels like you're starting seemingly from scratch, whereas New York, you're inheriting a team of former Acuity employees that are now part of your Illuminations team in New York. So let's start with the New York strategy. What is your strategy there to further develop and grow that market for you?
Well, as great of a company as Acuity is, we don't supply every fixture from A to Z on a project schedule. So, as a factory team prior, it was very tough to really get core manufacturers to join your team as an Acuity factory sales team. So we see that as being an opportunity of joining a company like I2, as George said in the beginning of this interview, of having 33 plus years of just an excellent track record in the marketplace. We believe, and George will get into this as well, we believe that from a customer standpoint, there's a lot of customers that go across those three territories. We knew of distribution very clearly from an Acuity perspective, but when you start looking at the lighting design community and the contractor community, the end user community, ESCOs, developers, you name it, general contractors, there's quite a few contractors, or there's quite a few customer types that do business across three of those territories. So we believe we can deliver a service value proposition that doesn't exist in the marketplace. We're going to lead with controls. I'll signal that strategy very clearly to all of our competitors out there. We believe Acuity provides us a controls package and a platform second to none. And then we're going to utilize that space that I talked about earlier on continually driving that value to the customer base in Manhattan and outside of Manhattan.
Makes sense. And when you consider all those different customer types, it's certainly important to cover that map with a consistent message. And the move in Jersey, George, came a little after the move in New York. So I was scratching my head looking at some of the major distributor chains that covered the New York metro area, the Philly metro area, but a lot of the decisions are made out of North Jersey. Now you got that piece of the puzzle, but the piece of the puzzle you don't have is a huge team of people like you did in New York. So what's your strategy in Jersey to build that team?
So our strategy in both territories, New York and New Jersey, is to mimic the Philadelphia agency's processes of, great service, strong inside support to make sure that our customers are taken care of at all times, and to also mimic the kind of structure we have for profit centers. We have several pillars of profit centers that we utilize in Philadelphia that, quite frankly, neither territory has been utilizing, New Jersey or New York, based on how they do their sales. We're taking those same strategies into those markets. And right now we're building the inside team out for the New Jersey market out of the Philadelphia market, and we're adding strong specification people and strong outside people. And we will be ready to service our customers on May 1st with our inside team, and we'll have our outside guys up and running very shortly after that.
That's great. Sounds like a smart strategy and a lot of work ahead of you. When you look at, George, that strategy as far as manufacturers and line cards, of course, you represent Acuity Brands in New York City and in the Philly market, but also by coincidence, you also represent other independent brands, including Zoomtobel and Puro Lighting and New Star Lighting. Now that you have this whole swath of territory, which can sometimes and often be 3 different agency manufacturer contracts, will there be any pressure put on manufacturers to have all or nothing territory representation agreements?
So to answer that question in a way that would not anger any manufacturer, but to be truthful, we have great relationships with our manufacturers, and we would love to have them throughout each territory to create the kind of synergy that we would like between the agencies. But we're not going to put any pressure on any manufacturer. The way we look at it, it's 3 separate territories with 3 separate line cards. And we feel that, like you said, actions speak louder than words. As we grow our agencies and become a strong entity in each market, we're going to expect that those manufacturers will want to join us and to keep within that synergy throughout the entire territory. There's a lot of guys that are joining us in all three territories without any pressure. They've all come to us. We haven't gone out there and pushed guys that come to us. They've made the move our way on their own.
Anyone you want to announce right now?
You'll know May 1st.
Perfect. Sero, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, George has a lot more insight when it comes to the peripheral manufacturers, and it's a place that I look forward to learning from him about as it relates to agency land.
Excellent. Well, Sero, let me ask you this then. When people see bold moves like this in territories, sometimes people then may look at this from the glass half empty perspective and say, oh my goodness, look at this. I too is going to become almighty and powerful. And now it's going to be tougher for certain lighting companies to negotiate projects in some of those territories because you'll have so much leverage, possibly. What do you say to those naysayers who believe that this could possibly turn into something where you folks will start throwing your weight around?
Well, I've always believed that, obviously I've dealt, just like you have, Al, you've dealt with agencies a long time, and I've learned from a lot of great agencies around the country. And those that actually over leverage or leverage their strength in the marketplace are not really creating the right partnerships as it relates to moving forward. So here's what I do know. I know a lot of customers within that footprint. They're excellent at what they do. They bring a lot of value to the marketplace. Hopefully, and I believe that I2 already has a value proposition that we would like to take across the footprint and also enhance it as we get into this digital world moving forward. We would like to think that that'll bring value to them and we'll create the right partnership moving forward. So when I hear when I hear a phrase like leveraging on a particular project, George might fall out of his seat when he hears me say this. I'm not necessarily, all in on one particular project. I'd rather build a relationship and build a partnership that enhances a tremendous amount of business to be done by all partners involved. And again, as important as the agents are to the ecosystem, distributors, contractors, end users, I mean, they're all very, very lighting designers. They're all very important to it. So we've got to enhance the value that we bring to them.
Makes sense, Sero. And George, when you consider your history, for a third of a century, you've built a successful agency that has a significant market share in the Philadelphia area, in the Philadelphia metro area. When you look at now all the moving parts that have to happen to make North Jersey, to make New York successful, how do you make sure that you maintain your market share in the Philly metro area without being distracted by all the other moving parts?
Well, you heard me talk about how we sell from the inside out, and we use our customer service and our service inside to work with all our customers and our salespeople, including me, because I'm a sales guy for the company, even though I have a big title. We've replaced me with a couple of people in Philadelphia who I'm working with very closely in all those accounts. And I'm very sure that our back of the house group will keep them in shape and make sure that they keep writing orders. And I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here and I'll make sure I maintain the relationships with our customers here, as well as help grow the other two entities in the business. I do want to make one comment with Sero's last question. We've been in Philadelphia for a long time, where there is an agency that does exactly what you're saying, leveraging that kind of work. And we've worked around it by working with our distributor partners, and we will continue to do that throughout the whole territory. This is not we're coming in to be a power play. We're coming in to be your friend.
Excellent perspective. And yes, I'm sorry to step on your answer. Excellent perspectives, George. It's exciting to see what you folks are doing. I know a lot of the industry is talking about all of the exciting things happening in New York, in Philly, and up and down the Jersey Turnpike. So George, congratulations to you. And thank you, George, for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
And Sero, good luck with the relocation. Good luck with the move and the goodbyes in Conyers and the hellos back home in your Philly market. So thank you, Sero, for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
Thank you for the invite, Al. Much appreciated.
Hey there, we really enjoyed that discussion. We hope that you did as well. Be sure to click that big LED logo next to me, and what that'll do is subscribe you to our YouTube channel so you don't miss the next 5 Big Questions interview. And YouTube subscribers always receive an early preview to the next interview before we even post it on the Inside Lighting website. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.